Ghana was the first post-World War II African nation to achieve independence. In 1957, the people of Ghana became responsible for the future development of their country. Since that time, much has happened. The industries of Ghana are turning out many products for home consumption as well as for export. However, there are still many bottlenecks to overcome. Production costs are high. Many raw materials have to be imported. There is competition from foreign goods. People have moved from the villages to cities to find little prospect for employment. Others are underemployed, making the system less efficient. Ghana has not had a consistent development plan for nearly a decade. This is because of changes in government and the fact that most recent governments have had to cope with a large foreign debt repayment before considering national development priorities. Rural development has not taken place rapidly because development loans have been applied to specific projects which do not always affect the rural people quickly or are too localized when they do. Not all big spending projects have been so successful. A poorly planned building lies vacant. A 4-lane highway almost void of traffic. Agricultural equipment ruined and rusting. Some large-scale projects, however, are effective. The Volta River Dam has been finished, forming one of the largest man-made lakes in the world. It has brought hydroelectric power, water supply, transportation, and a fishing industry to many people. Ghana needs foreign aid, but it needs the sort of aid which will help Ghana to plan a unified development policy. Urban industrial development really cannot take place until rural areas can produce the necessary raw materials and foods to service urban areas. I am Yelbora Antumini. I work in the coordination of volunteers in the northern and upper regions of Ghana. My work entails visiting volunteers, seeing their problems, and finding new ways, new places, new projects in which volunteers could be useful. One of the agencies, Canadian University Service Overseas, started its Ghana program in 1961. CUSO's main emphasis has been in education, but there have always been a number of volunteers in health and rural development projects. In a small village in the upper region, CUSO has posted 4 volunteers. George Martins and Bob McDonald are working in agricultural extension, while Heather Raymond and Helen Bricol are running a rural health clinic.
What I was before I left Canada was a farmer. What I'm doing here is just farming all the time. When I go back to Canada, I'm going to be a farmer. And the work here has taught me how to be a little more patient with the things that the farmer has to put up with. It's taught me how to handle people, to know how to see the best side of people, and getting along with these farmers. Farmers the world over are something it takes a long time to get confidence in. When you get it, you've got their trust for a long, long time. At the end of the dry season, we have started a new project, and that is trying to get the farmers to preserve the grains that they've already worked hard for all through the wet season. The biggest problem with the people in their silos is that white ants will come through the cracks in the mud and then spoil a lot of the grain that they've already worked hard to get. So what we do is put the local base only by adding a little bit of cement so that there's no mud on the base. Makes it a lot stronger. Instead of plastering the outsides of their mud silos with their local type of plaster, we put cement, so there's no way that the rain is going to spoil it. Lots of times I find these farmers are even happier than the farmers at home when they have only a hoe to work with, and the farmers at home have thousands and thousands of dollars worth of equipment. These farmers, in fact, make me happy lots of times just to go and talk to them and see what type of mood they're in, and I can sit down and joke with these farmers and just be too happy when I leave them.
Sending whites into Ghana at the present date, it's not in any way perpetuating colonialism. In fact, most rural people now know the difference between whites. All whites are not whites. They know, for instance, after a time, those who are Catholic fathers, they know those who are government officials, and thanks to the era when Ghanaian nationalism was at its top, we were told and told and told again that the Ghanaian is no longer under any white man, that the Ghanaian is free.
Each child comes to the clinic once a month, and each time the child is there, he's weighed, and this gives sort of a general picture of the child's health. When I first came, I spoke myself, and I had the girl who helps me in the clinics, Christina, translated. After a while, I started teaching Christina what I would say in the clinic myself, so that she would learn the lecture or learn the different points in the demonstration, and then give it all herself. Well, there's different aspects to the clinic. The first part is a food demonstration. Here I try to use foods that they would use at home, and hopefully in the way that they would use them at home. It's what I wanted from CUSO, to get sort of some responsibility that would be greater than what I would have at home. And this job, I feel, gives me that responsibility, and it lets me sort of work in the field that I'm interested. Not so much the community health, but the supervisory aspect. I'd never have the chance to do this so early at home. I see them all, but how deeply I question them varies. If a child looks quite healthy and so on, well, the mother's doing the right thing, and you just tell her what a fine child she has, and she's happy. But if the child's not so fine, well, then you try to figure out what can this mother do to make her child a little bit more healthy. Well, Catholic Relief Services set up the program, and their drawing card is the food. They want these children to be seen once a month and to be assessed by a medical person. But just to have, say, these mothers walk in 5-6 miles from a village would be impossible. They just wouldn't come. They wouldn't take a child that they considered well, that distance. But if we're giving them 5 pounds of wheat and 2.5 pounds of dried skim milk, it's a big enough thing that they'll come.
One thing with some of our highly educated persons is that they are highly theoretical. So what we want is a mixture of what I would call foreign expertise in practical farming combined with theoretical agriculture. We have not had that opportunity to get the practical side of it because we don't have these large farms. We don't have commercial farms as you have in Canada and other places. So let's say if you take somebody who has been to university and probably who lived on a farm in Canada, he is well qualified really to do agricultural extension.
I came during the dry season, so the first job that we undertook was setting up farmers doing dry season garden. What we tell these farmers is that if you set this garden up, then you can take some products to market, you can sell them, and you can get some money, and you can spend this on whatever you want. So the farmer then is all of a sudden becomes excited. There's a bit of hope of a little bit of money coming in, and then if he wants to buy this, if he wants to buy a different kind of food, if he wants to buy salt, if he wants to buy sugar, he can go ahead and do it. So the whole system becomes a little bit more affluent, or whatever you want to call it. And the program is going to be a continued program. It's not going to be come and start the thing and get the people excited and then we'll pull out after a couple of years' time. The whole thing is a continued process, and I'm very confident that the whole thing is going to work. The type of work that the WIAGA project is doing, in my mind, is the only way that the majority of the people are going to find a better way of living.
In WIAGA, working with me is Helene Bricot, another CUSO nurse who came a year before me. She is a nurse midwife from Montreal. She runs antenatal clinics. She does the deliveries. She sees the women during their pregnancy, and hopefully she'll see these same women for the delivery. That is her specific job in WIAGA, the same as my specific job would be child welfare clinics.
We understand better after the process is the period, how come we have period and very long.
On Thursdays we go to Bush Village. What we do in the village itself is see anybody who wants to be seen by us. I had started going there doing child welfare, but I was only seeing the under fives, and it really wasn't what the village wanted. They want a general clinic which anybody can go to and be seen.
In Ghana today, our health standard has improved far more than we thought was possible a few years back. Still, I do not say it is adequate. For instance, in the field of environmental hygiene, there are still many basic things that our people don't know. Because they've not been to school, they don't know that this will give you this illness, or this will lead to that. This means that temporarily, whilst we cannot turn out the required number of nurses, we need assistance from somewhere. Any volunteer agency who can send in nurses will be doing a very great service to us. But it's not only nurses that we need other trained medical personnel. Anybody who can assist in improving the health of our people.
To me, going out into the compounds, it's half the experience of being here. It's a whole different world. Just when you're sitting at home, you'd expect a CUSO nurse to do. To have somebody come knocking on your door in the middle of the night, and you get off and charge off and help them and so on. We had a lot of CSM cases, meningitis cases, and it really kept us hopping for about a month. Am I contributing to the pulse of people? I think, I can't help but contribute, say. If you go down and you work with a child that's very, very sick, and would die if they didn't have some sort of medical care. Well, if you can, help that child to get better again, well, you've contributed. That's sort of on the curative side. On the preventative side, I don't know. All you can do is keep repeating, keep trying.
In spite of progress in rural development, many young people have migrated into urban areas. Lacking skills, they meet with employment difficulties. However, progress is being made in various fields of technical education. Bill and Jane Campbell are CUSO volunteers in the Volta region, teaching at Kwando Technical Institute. Bill is instructing students in auto mechanics, while Jane is teaching typing.
In Canada, I was an auto mechanic, and I have come here to teach them the practicals of auto mechanics, the basic fundamentals of operating machinery, the basic fundamentals of using tools. We have some used equipment to work on to try and get the students used to just working with their hands. The tool supply, well, it's fairly decent. Then again, if they go into the field, they're not going to have elaborate equipment either. So there's not much point in teaching them how to use an oscilloscope or anything for electronic analysis of engines or anything like this when they're not going to use it when they get out. So to try and get them to think rather than rely on something else and rationalize out their problems with the cars. In the auto department where I am, there are 3 other teachers. One teaches most of the technology and science of it. The other teacher and myself have most of the control of the practicals, in other words, shop practice.
Now, with this,
there is a vast difference between what I'm doing now and what I would have been doing if I was in Canada for these 2 years. In Canada, I was fixing anything from brakes on a small Austin to putting a supercharger on a high-performance Corvette or Mustang or something like this. In Ghana, I am teaching the students the basic fundamentals of auto repairing to get them familiar with the different parts of the auto. The students have helped me insofar as with the questions that they've asked me has made me spend a lot more time on small things that I just didn't bother even thinking about before. And as a result, when I go back to Canada, I will know my profession better, just because they have posed a lot of questions that made me think.
The people here in Ghana really receive you very well. Whenever you go into a Ghanaian's home, or you stop in a town for a drink or something like that, the first word that ever comes out of their mouths is always welcome. When we first came to Pandu, I was having a very difficult time with our food and what to cook, because like a yam and a cassava, garden eggs, okra, and all these different kinds of vegetables, I didn't know what to do with them or how to cook them or anything like that.
We find that in Ghana, that whenever anything is taking place, they go all the way for the ceremony of the occasion.
There are certain occupations, certain jobs, which in themselves are not glamorous. And yet, without these, no commercial house, no government department, no organization can function properly. I'm referring to typists, to stenographers, to bookkeepers. Now, in Ghana here, our educational system has been such that anybody who goes to school does not think of any other subject but subjects that will lead him to a secondary school and finally to a university. Most of us think of being big men in offices. We never think of anything else. But with the numbers who now gain admittance into schools, it is impossible for all those who are turned out to get the high positions that they've been dreaming of. And yet there are many simple things which need to be done and don't have people to do them because our educational system has not prepared them for these things. One of this is commercial education. In planning for unified development, the acquisition of business skills is a priority. In Tamale, Brian Odwaya is teaching business communications at the Tamale Business College.
Downtown Tamale, from about 5 o'clock in the morning until around 8 o'clock, there's tables set up outside the market near service stations or lorry parks where a person can stop and get a cup of coffee or Milo, a chocolate drink, and a loaf of bread. From there I go to school. I'm usually there by about 20 after 7, stand around and shoot the breeze with the rest of the staff, and then go into my first classes. Business communications consists of teaching how to write business letters, invoices, the telephone, telegraph, just about any business communication system that's being currently used in Ghana today. Just to teach business English requires a lot of teaching of basic English, which would be grammar, trying to organize thoughts on paper, which comes through in essays, public speaking, writing précis, trying to come up with the main topics in an essay. Just basic logical thinking that's sort of akin to business method.
I want to know whether as soon as we put on the machine.
Teaching speeches was probably the most exciting part of the curriculum so far, because I think most of my students, I won't say all Ghanaians, enjoy getting up and making speeches, and they very much enjoy putting forth their own ideas. So given a range of topics, you can have some pretty exciting speeches. And the students seem to do a lot of work in preparation. Well, the telephone is a very odd thing to have to teach, particularly in the northern part of Ghana, since most of the students have never experienced using a telephone. The one telephone in town is located at the post office. In the future, I think my experience in Ghana will apply in 2 big ways. One being that I had never ever considered teaching before coming over here. I'd thought of a career in business as being some sort of a merchant or salesman or a lawyer in that way. Whereas since I've come here, I've found teaching to be an extremely enjoyable job. It seems that in the classroom, no matter how angry or frustrated I become, I can always survey the class and find one face smiling at me, or perhaps even having a laugh on me, that lifts me out of perhaps frustrations of my own limitations, the frustrations of the heat during the hot season. Just generally speaking, Ghanaian people effervesce, and it's a very catchy thing, and most certainly is the most enjoyable part about being here. The Pito Bar is the center of social activity in Tamale. Pito is a form of beer brewed from guinea corn. It's a good place to go because people are free, easy to talk to. There's all kinds of characters wandering in and out of the Pito Bar, the same people you might expect to come in and out of a bar in Canada. One of the most enjoyable experiences are the folk singers that wander in from time to time.
Ghana is basically a rural country, but with an ever-increasing urban sector. If all the people are to benefit from national developments, it is essential that both the rural and urban areas develop in unison. The successful implementation of development plans require concerted action from various sources, local as well as international. Volunteer agencies are one of these sources. They have played a major part and still continue to contribute their share.